Cool. So we've got Josh with us today. Josh, the driving instructor, not this Josh,
Hello.
another Josh. How are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. We are going to have to find a way to differentiate ourselves though, because I think my YouTube channel, my other one's Josh, approved driving instructor. You're Josh, the driving instructor.
Josh, the driving instructor. Yes. How are we going to do that? We'll figure it out.
I'm probably
Jay.
going to get rid of my other one and just focus on this now anyway. You can hold the fort for the Joshes on YouTube.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that for us.
I hope
Yeah.
you
Thank you
found
for
it.
having me, Josh.
That's all right. It's great to have you. I'm looking forward to. We've had a few chats about things that
Yeah.
we want to talk about, so I'm looking forward to it, and I think there's going to be some good things that will help people. Either wanting to do what you're doing on YouTube and social media, or people that are just looking to start becoming a driving instructor as well. So it's going to be interesting. But have you been getting on? You keeping well?
Very well, thank you. Yes. As I say, I've been on a bit of a healthy lifestyle focus at the moment. So been doing that and I'm preparing for a holiday next week. So yeah, it's all a bit go, 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 you know.
What's brought
How
on the
about you?
healthy lifestyle? I'm good. I'm the opposite. With starting this, I know I was telling you, my training is slacking massively at the minute. So I
Yeah,
think it's going to be good to, we can start there. The risks and the health risks with this job are
yeah,
not good. And I was quite active until recently.
yeah, yeah.
Is that what's
Uh,
brought on your health kick, is it?
Yes, massively. Yeah. I mean, I heard it a lot when I trained. I heard a lot. In fact, I think my trainer actually told me, you're at high risk of certain things. Twisted spine for one, I can't remember the exact name. And I thought, yeah, yeah, yeah. And before this, I was a teacher originally, so I was on my feet a
Okay.
lot. Believe it or not, they do stand up a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was putting up marquees, so very physical job. I did that for a year or so. Again, very physical job. And then doing this where you literally sit on your backside all day. I didn't notice it at the beginning, but I'm 4 years deep now, Josh. And yeah, it's starting to take its toll. I'm 37 and I feel like I'm 50. So yeah, I've decided it's time. If I want to take myself seriously and I want other people to take me seriously, I need to look after myself a little bit. So that's where I am.
That's something I'm aware of. I know I was telling you, but I kind of monitor my weight for my sport. A little bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu in my spare time, so I need to be on it for weight. And then when I switched to doing this full time, about 6 months ago, I started full time, and I'd gained weight without noticing, and not much had changed apart from I'm sat down all day, every day,
Yeah,
eating terrible food. So, what
yeah.
changes have you been trying to make?
Well, for a start, I've stopped eating chocolate. But yeah, no, I've stopped eating chocolate. I've started having, instead of sandwiches for lunch and bags of crisps, having smoothies,
Okay. Yeah.
with lots of chia seeds and flax seeds. You heard of those?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I bet you have heard of all of
Yeah.
that. Are they as good as it says they're good?
Apparently so. I've never really been one for a huge healthy diet.
No.
So before this, I was in the RAF, so always quite active, and
Yeah,
then training every day. I was training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, competing quite regularly. So my diet was never something that I hugely focused on.
no.
Apart from when I was cutting weight for a competition, I'd cut out the chocolate and the carbs. The
Yeah,
bloke I used to work with, flax seeds, all that kind of stuff. A lot of healthy flapjacks he used to bring into work,
yeah,
and we'd get on that. So diet is something that I should probably pay more attention to now, because that's going to be the
yeah.
biggest effect that I'm going to see on this job.
Definitely. But that's the problem I've had. I'm no good with diets. I did the keto diet once. I love the keto diet. That's the best thing that ever happened to me
Really?
because I love meat. Oh, absolutely. I lost so much weight on that diet. Um, but it's not sustainable. I went on holiday and I got on the plane and ate a big fat, bacon sandwich. And then that was it for the rest of the holiday. And I got back and you can see the picture of me when I left and the picture of me when I got back. Oh, so yeah. So basically, the point being is diets. I don't think is sustainable, and I think that they're punishment. They're almost like you're punishing yourself, and most people struggle to stick to that. Um, the average Joe, not someone who's, doing something like yourself. But the average Joe like me struggles to stick to that. So what I'm trying to focus on is more of a healthy lifestyle, not too punishing, but just making some simple changes like not eating crisps, having lighter mayonnaise, not um, eating sandwiches for lunch, instead having, as I say, smoothies, and just focusing a little bit more on my portion size and staying away from the chocolates and calories I don't need, focusing on low calorie dense foods.
Yeah, see, the only diet I've ever done, and I'd almost forgot about it. I went vegan for about a year.
Did you?
Yeah,
That's intense.
I watched. Did you see the Netflix game? Is it Game Changer?
Wasn't
A-
about cows, was it?
it was about a plant-based diet, and I watched that, and I'd done it for the health side of it to trial it, and it actually made a huge difference to
Did it?
yeah, I my weight was better, my stamina was better for training and
Really?
competing. It made a huge difference. The issue I had with being vegan was finding the right foods.
Yeah.
It was so hard to find vegan food. And then I've got three kids, Mrs. They didn't do it with me. So they'd be
No.
start eating whatever they'd eat, and I'd have to have veg and rice. But yeah, I managed it for about a year. And then I broke and asked the missus to go and get the biggest steak she could find. And I was ill for about 3 days afterwards. But then since
Yeah.
then, back on me. Yeah.
Yes. Made you poorly, did it?
Eating the meat, yeah. So I
Yeah.
wasn't, when I went, this was what made me stick with it. When I went vegan, I didn't get ill.
Yeah.
And then when I started eating meat again, I, I remember it. I was having the steak and getting the meat sweats and feeling sick. And then the missus was like, oh, I don't want mine. Oh, I'm going to eat yours as well. It wasn't going to waste. Yeah, and I was ill for quite a few days, but I stuck through it. And now I'm back on a
That's the
varied diet.
important thing. But no, I think with this job, as you said, you got massive health risks. Like one, the simple one is you're going to end up overweight if you aren't consistent with some exercise. So yeah, so walking the dog, things like that, just the simple things. And as you said, a massive one that you said is between your lessons, get out the car. Don't
Yeah.
sit in the car and text them and sitting there staring at your TikTok. Get out the car, walk up and down the road. Doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes. You need 8,000 steps, really. I think minimum's about 6. But I could easily get home and have done 1,000 steps in a day. You know, that's not okay. That's not good for your body, is it?
I probably do a lot less than 1,000, but I have, yeah, recently get out the car, walk around the car.
Yeah.
Not much else I can do. But something I was talking to on the last episode was adding time between lessons for
Yeah.
exactly that. At
Yeah.
the minute, I have half an hour to get from one student to the next. And
Yeah.
I am looking at changing my diary with everyone going back to school and back to college. I think I'm going to amend my diary to have a longer break between, maybe do 2 lessons, then a longer break
Yeah.
to get out and walk, because the effect of sitting in the car, I'm feeling it at the minute. And then the diet side of it, I run into Tesco, grab whatever sandwich I can. I do the healthy bit though. I do get a fruit pot to go with it, along with an energy drink to keep me going. So
Got to look
there are
after
some
yourself.
changes.
Yeah. So, but no, absolutely, I agree, and that's a really good idea. And maybe I should do the same. I do half an hour between lessons as well, which is fine if they're close together, but they're not normally, are they?
No.
Normally, it takes half hour. So, no, I completely agree, and maybe I will look at that as well because, as I say, I strongly, after 4 years of doing this now, I can see the differences in the effects it's having, and they're not good. They're not positive. So I've also introduced. I've got weights. I've got a gym, bit of a bench, something
Yeah.
for a bit of cardio bike, and I'm just trying to do that 3-4 times a week because I've got to. I've got to. You're going to lose all your muscle as well, aren't you? You're sitting in a car, you don't do anything. I don't think it's good for you mentally either. I haven't felt mentally fantastic, if I'm completely honest with you, And why would you? You don't do anything all day apart from stare at a road, you don't do any physical activity, we know that's not good.
I completely agree. And I've been making excuses the last 2 months. And after this episode, I'm now like, no, I need to get back to training. I've had a few messages from people, are you coming training? I'm like, I can't, I've been up late. And it's excuses. There's
Yeah,
time. I need to get back to it. And probably my diet. I need to stop having the energy drinks and the Tesco sandwiches.
yeah. I mean, it's easy said than done, isn't it? And as you said, you can't be perfect, can you? You
No,
know, it's not about punishing yourself to the degree of can't enjoy life anymore because then it's not sustainable, and that's when you don't stick to it. It's just about making the simple changes.
yeah, and make it achievable. There's like for me, my class is 6 in the morning that I go to. Um, and it will become sustainable again. But my diary is going to have to give. I need to finish work earlier. I can't
Yeah,
do like tomorrow, go to the gym, do 2 weeks of 14 to 16-hour days because after 2 weeks, it's not sustainable. So I think
no,
those, like you say, you're right, the little changes that you can stick to. And
yeah,
then you can add more if you need to. If you
yeah,
decide to do more training, it becomes a little bit easier. But it's something to be aware of in this job. The health risks. One I heard, I can't remember who it was, the bladder and not going to the toilet and not
yeah,
drinking enough water, I
yeah.
think is something people need to
Dehydration.
be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I have to go to the toilet now every 2 hours, regardless. And I feel bad on the students saying, you're going to have to stop and I'm going to the toilet, but I've got to do it now because, as you say, I think it actually causes anxiety if you leave it too long after a while and I start to get anxious. So I'm like, oh no, I need the toilet again. No, so I just don't do it anymore. And the problem with that, what I realized is coffee. Coffee is terrible. Oh,
Yes.
it's a nightmare. Makes you Coffee makes you want to go to the toilet straight away, and it also dehydrates you because it makes you go to the toilet. So yeah, I've got to watch. I've had to watch the coffee content.
I've cut down massively on coffee. I have one a day now, because I can't sleep if I have any more. Um,
Really, very
yeah,
sensitive
it's
to caffeine.
after 12 o'clock. If I have a coffee, that's me wired
Yeah,
till God knows what time. But there's quite a lot of studies. I enjoy it. I listen to a lot of stuff from outside of the industry about health and performance, and caffeine really isn't good for you.
no,
But it tastes good and it wakes me up in the morning.
absolutely, and I love it. No, and as you say again, no one's perfect.
No.
If we're realistic, is there anything in this world that we love that isn't trying to kill us? So I guess it's about control.
Yes, managing it and being
Yeah,
aware of it as well. That I had
definitely.
to stop. I know I was joking about the energy drinks, but I was
Yeah,
getting to the point where I was having to have like two a day. I was having one
yeah,
with my lunch, and then mid-afternoon, I'm like, I'm gonna have to stop and get and
yeah,
get myself a Red
yeah,
Bull. So I was aware of that, and now I drink a lot more water during the day to get away from it. So it's
yeah,
being aware of those little things that creep in. I'm just going to grab a chocolate bar, then you have a sugar high, and then you crash in and you need another one, and then the cycle continues.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely terrible. Um, and I think that's another thing that you've touched on. It's very easy to get into the routine of buying food in between your lessons. And I really try not to do. I went through a stage of buying the odd McDonald's burger and whatnot. And it's not just your health, it's the cost. It's only a quid here, only 2 quid there, only £3.50 for a meal deal. When you add times that by five, that adds up in a week. And you times it by, times that by four, that's a month. That's a big chunk coming out your account when yes, I've had to really curb that and I'm cheap now. I only bring stuff from home.
I don't take stuff from home with me, but I do need to. That's something I'm aware of, but I need to be strict with myself and prepare food on a Sunday ready for the week. So maybe that's my goal after this episode is
Maybe, maybe. But in your defense, you're doing 12 to 14-hour days. I'm doing six. So I've got time to prepare. And I imagine if I was doing 12 to 14-hour days, I'd probably be buying a coffee or two en route as well.
it's crazy once you stop taking it though. You don't rely on it. It takes a little bit of a
No,
while to get used to,
does it?
but yeah, I consciously a few days a month just don't have coffee. Um,
Really.
I replace it with hot chocolate. I'm not sure whether that's better or worse.
That's good though. That's a good shout. That's a really good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. I did actually. It's funny you say that because I did listen to a study myself as well about a guy, a bit of a health expert, and he was saying the effects of coffee after, as you say, you shouldn't drink it 8 to 10 hours before sleep because he said it
Yep.
doesn't matter what you think, you will not sleep as well. Guaranteed, you won't sleep as well if you have coffee 8 to 10 hours before sleep. So very interesting that you say that because you're basically sticking to that by not drinking coffee after 12. And he was saying the effects, you lose all the effects of it really when you start to rely on it. The only way you can actually gain the effects of it again are by doing, as you've said, stop taking it for a little bit and use it as a tool when you need it. So I was impressed with that.
We've
I,
uh, we've gone down a good rabbit hole there. We said
we have,
health style,
sorry,
and here we are.
sorry.
Coffee. This is great. Stop drinking coffee. Start preparing your own food, and only do 2 lessons a day, and have an hour off in between.
That's
Job done.
it. And do
I'm
some
not.
weights.
Yeah, do some weights. When do we make money then? When does that come into it?
Yes. Yes, that's a good question. No, I think, as you say, you've got to focus on a few basics, haven't you? And I think the really important point here is between lessons, you need to be walking. You can't sit in your car. If you're doing that, one, you're not going to have any energy because you haven't given yourself a chance to recover. You're going to end up stiff as well, especially if you're getting older. Um, yeah, and three, when are you going to get your steps in if you don't do it there?
Because once you get home, I found it. You sit down. You're mentally fatigued, and then you're maybe not in the physical shape that you should be. So it kind of spirals. You don't want to do anything when you get home because you've not got the energy because you're flatlining from your caffeine intake
Yeah,
and your
and
energy drinks.
absolutely. And the mental capacity of actually teaching someone to drive is ridiculous. I think you try driving 3 or 4 hours to London, you're knackered. You're knackered when you get there, and you're doing that in the car all day. But instead of driving, you're watching someone else that can't drive try and drive and trying to avoid them crashing the car at the same time without telling them, don't crash the car. It's very, very tiring.
That's something that I do struggle with the students that are pretty much independent, where
Yes.
for 90% of their lesson, they're good.
Yeah.
But there's that small chance that they'll make that little mistake. And they're the ones that I struggle with because you've got
Yeah.
to be on the ball, but they're doing everything correct. And then you catch
Yeah.
yourself and you're like, I've got to focus
Yeah.
because a mistake will come.
On the
Um,
roundabouts normally, isn't it? They normally pull out on the roundabout or something. It's just like, oh,
yep. And you've got to be on the ball. And you're right, if you're not mentally prepared for it,
yeah.
it can become challenging. I found my limit now is 4 lessons a day. So 4 90-minute lessons a day is if I do much more than that without a long break,
Yeah.
I can't do it. So I think I've eventually found a good balance for me, um, which works. And like I was saying, I do sometimes work in the evening, like I did today, but I have a few hours off during the day where I can just switch off for a few hours and recharge and go again. So there is a lot to think about with this job. It's not just sit in the car, tell someone where to go and job done.
I think that's really important what you said as well. You found your limit of that, and everyone's limit is different. You know, I found generally any more than 6 hours, that's sort of my limit. And it's how many days a week as well. What's really
Mhm.
important to me is that I get 2 days off. And it doesn't matter that first week. If I work 6 days or 7 days, it doesn't matter that week. It's the second week. I start to get irate. I start to get a little bit antsy because it's too repetitive. I haven't had time to mentally have a break. I can't physically do it. It's too repetitive, you know? And I think that's the important thing is everyone has their limit and it's about finding what works for you.
That's a good point. Definitely figuring that out. I say it's funny you mentioned that. I had a chat with my missus today with this kind of YouTube channel that I'm doing and the working and the kids being off school. So when I get home, as you know, it doesn't stop. And I said to her, I'm going to have to take a day off when the kids are back in school and she's back at work. I'm going to be taking a day off. Nothing on the
Yeah.
computer, just to reset for the day. So
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
yeah, looking
Uh,
after yourself.
yeah, you've got to. I think it's really, really important. And I say this, I've got a Discord channel with for driving instructors as well, for people that are training to be driving instructors. You're welcome to join, by the way. There's loads of information on there. But yeah, and they laugh because I always say I taking a day off of work 4 days most of the time because, well, as I say, I do the YouTube and whatnot, but you just can't do too much in this job. You can't. It doesn't matter what you can. And this is what I say: you can do too much. You can do 6, 7 days, but I don't believe everyone can actually mentally do that and do a good job. And that's what it's about. It's about keeping the quality. And I know physically I can't do more than 6 hours of high quality lessons. And that's what I focus on. I charge a premium price, but I like to focus on giving absolute quality. And that's when you need to know where your limit is. Yes, you could sit there and like the old days where they talk about, oh, my instructor used to read the newspaper. Well, great. So you're sitting in the car. You must have been sitting in the car with your dad then, hadn't you, without paying the freaking instructor? And I think that's the important point of what driving instructors need to learn and think about where their limit is. It's not just it shouldn't be a cash cow. It should be quality.
I completely agree with that. And the more people I talk to through this and everything else that's going on, there's a lot of people that are that passionate about it. But I think we've both mentioned it, and we'll dive into it. It's a good link. Is some of the horror stories that we hear from other students. I don't know whether it's a factor of they don't have the capacity to do the amount of work that they're doing,
Yeah.
but when you get students that have been shouted at and they'd
Yeah.
given up learning to drive and they don't want to do it and they're anxious, don't want to make mistakes. Have you had much experience of that with kind of your reach that you've got through the socials? Do you hear much of students having a hard time from instructors?
Okay, so from a personal level, I've had plenty of students come to me and say, "Oh, my instructors used to shout at me. You're completely different." I've had another lad say, "I threatened to punch my instructor in the face because he was being so rude to me. He was shouting at me." I've had another lad who used to shake, and he used to drive a motorbike. He could drive, and he was really good. And I'm like, what's up?" And he said, "It's because my instructor took me down the A34 on my first lesson, and I completely crapped. Excuse my French. Um, Another lad, his instructor took him onto a 60 national speed limit road on his first lesson. He's never been in a car, and so I have dealt with it. I haven't seen it so much on YouTube, but yes. And I think there's a number of reasons for it. I mean, what do you think? Have you come across it
Um,
much?
yeah, I've got a couple of students on my books at the minute, and I've had students in the past, and just some of the things that get said. Um, I know we should take a lot of it with a pinch of salt, but there are some
Mm,
things where I'm like, there's no way a student can make these things up, at least in
no,
my opinion.
no.
Um, and I don't know what it is. I think there are clearly different people come into an industry um, with different motivations as for why they're doing it. I mean, we'll delve into this. I came into it because I enjoy teaching people, and we can talk a
Yeah,
little bit about what I done before. But you said you was
yeah,
a teacher, you was on your feet
yeah.
all the time. So did you come into this job with that passion of teaching? What made you decide to do this?
Well, as you say, I think that's there's two important points there. Not only did I do that once upon a time back in the day, oh, when I was a young scallywag, I worked a lot in the pub industry before I went to
Okay.
uni. Realised I was going to get to sort myself out a little bit. But yeah, but that gave me amazing people skills. If anyone says, Josh, one, I'm lucky. Two, I could talk to people. I could talk the back end of a donkey. Which I think in this job you've got to have. You've got to be able to communicate with people and know how to talk to people. If you can't do that, you're in the wrong job. And the second thing, as you said, is you've got to enjoy teaching. And yes, I didn't enjoy the teaching in school because there was too much politics. And the biggest thing, if I'm honest, was taking work home. I was no good at school because I didn't want to do my homework. I didn't want to revise. Then I stupidly became a teacher and I've got to take all this work home, mark books, lesson plan. No, thank you. Especially when it's not my own business. And I've always been entrepreneurial. don't know if that was a word, but we'll go
Yeah,
with
that's
it.
a word. It's staying. It is now.
um, so the driving instructing seemed perfect for that, and yeah, I think it is to answer the question.
Yes, yeah, you did. That you came into it, like you say, from having good people skills and you
Yeah,
enjoyed the teaching, but not the politics that came with it. And
yeah,
almost similar to what I done, but I was a teacher, an instructor, whatever word we're going to use in the military. I enjoyed the teaching, but
yeah,
I always felt like I wanted to do things my way. Um,
yes,
and time restraints and other things don't necessarily suit with that, along with other objectives that need to be met and stuff like that. So yeah, I came into this wanting to be a teacher and not having any qualifications to be a teacher. So it's the barrier to entry to this industry is
yeah,
low,
yes,
which was good for me. Um, I'm not sure if that's why some people come. I mean, I'm sure some people come to it. It's good money,
yeah,
um, without much requirement to start, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
absolutely. As you say, you don't need a degree. You can walk in. Anyone can walk into this. All you've got to be able to do is have a fairly clean license. What is it? 3 years of
3 years
driving.
and
Yeah.
over the age of 21.
Yeah. So it's very, very low barrier. What's not very low entry point? Well, it is the hard bit is the actual training, isn't it? If we're
Yes.
honest, and that's I think something that needs to be shared and discussed really, because I know I did not expect the level of training that was going to be required or the cost actually involved. And that's not great with some of the companies out there. They trick you into believing it's going to be this set price, and actually that's just scratching the surface, isn't it? You know, um, and that's yeah, and I think that's also why there's probably quite a low actual point of how many actually finish the training, isn't there, Josh? Well,
Yeah, I don't know the statistics on how many people who um, take a part one test and then
yeah,
how many people become qualified, but the pass rate for the part three is and has been steady around 30 to 35%
yeah,
pass rate,
yeah,
which isn't good when
not at all.
you should be getting good training and be in a position and prepared for the part three. And that was one of the reasons I started this. There's got to be something we can do as an industry to improve that because 30% pass rate, I don't understand why I did fail my first part three. So we can get
Yeah,
that out there, Delvin. I've
yeah,
spoke about that a few times. But I completely understood why. And I think with maybe different training, I might have been in a better position, without throwing anyone under the bus who I trained with. It
yeah,
was a big school and I decided not to take the franchise. So I'd done 40 hours and then that was me left to figure it out, which was fine. It was my choice. I'd done 40 hours and went independent. But I didn't really know at the time how much was out there for
no,
instructors and then how much work you should really be putting in to get
yeah.
through the part three. But how did you find your training then?
Um, Again, I was with a smaller school at the time. I think they're okay in size now. As I say, the main thing here that we need to remember throughout all of this conversation is that I've always wanted to be my own boss. So it didn't matter who I was going with. I was going to fight tooth and nail to be my own boss. I'm from a family of antique dealers as well, so they're all on their own, But no, my training, I had a very, very good trainer. Very, very good trainer. I was very, very fortunate that I had two good trainers. They're both audit registered. Um, the training supplied for me was nowhere near enough. So I paid probably a couple of thousand more pounds to have extra lessons with both of the trainers
Okay.
um, when it came to the part three. So yeah, but that was nothing to do with the driving school. That was purely just I spoke to them privately and arranged for can I get more lessons with both of you? Um, so yeah, I was very, very lucky in that respect. But I've heard a lot of horror stories about people that aren't, real horror stories. spoke to someone the other day who works with someone who's just passed their part three, and they said the school's just asked them if they want to start training driving instructors now. And I was just like, what? Is this crazy? But yeah. So and I've got a few friends in the Discord that have had really bad experiences. They've actually had to swap trainers, and luckily the last one's just made it through out the five of us on his third attempt because he swapped trainers, thank God. So yeah, there's a bar that's missing there, isn't there? And
Yes.
it's unfortunate that the audit register did such a high bar. I think that is quite a high bar, more because trying to get the availability of going for your audit registration is quite difficult because you need a standards check-in first in order to do that. And secondly, that then counts as one of your three possibilities of failing and losing your driving instructor license, which I imagine is going to put a few people off.
I expect so. It's something that I'm toying with the idea of. I've not said it on an episode yet, but here we are.
No.
But yeah, getting that A on a standards check is the bit that concerns me. So you're right.
Yeah.
And then having people that have just qualified, then delivering training to people coming into the industry. I mean, there's probably some people that have the personality and the drive where they understand it and they can take that information and deliver good training in quite a short period of time. But I
Yeah.
would imagine they're in small numbers if we're being honest. It can't just be a default. We've got a driving instructor near you. They're an ADI. They're going to train you, and then you find out
Yeah.
they've been qualified a few months,
Yeah.
and now they can sign off the paperwork. So that's
Yeah.
interesting to hear that you're not the first person that said that to me as well.
No. And no, as you say, it must be a very, very small number. Most, as they say, most jobs, well, anything, it takes 1,000 hours before you can say you're an expert at it. 1,000 hours, 1,000 days, something like that. 10,000 hours before you can say you're an expert at it. And I think this is exactly the same. I know for me, for instance, 4 years in, and I'm still learning new things. First 2 years we're just learning every day, just mind-bogglingly learning every day. So the idea of trying to train someone through that, no chance. So yeah, no, it's an adventure,
It
a
is.
roller coaster.
It's good to hear though that you had a good trainer, and you then kind of out of your own pocket and your own time got that extra training. I think
Yeah,
that's something that people need to be more aware of. I've spoke to a couple of people now since releasing these episodes that have failed a part three or failed a second part three, and they feel trapped with the trainer that they've got.
yeah,
Um, and I think people need to start reaching out and looking at what's out there and who can help them because there are so many really good trainers that are willing to help people and willing to share. Um, and it's your business ultimately. You might be under a franchise, you might be doing something else, but you're self-employed. It's
yeah,
it's your business. You need to do
yeah,
what works for you and where you see your business going, and not just this is what the school said I need to do. I'm going to do it, and then you fail, and then
yeah.
repeat the same process. There's people out there that can help. They just need to reach out and find someone that works with them.
Definitely. And I think, things like this are a fantastic tool because that's the problem. Searching online and things like that, it's very difficult to find the right information. And that's why I started the Discord as well, because that is purely for people training to be driving instructors. They can come in, it's completely free. They can ask questions, and they've got a million other people that are training to be driving instructors giving answers to the same questions. Do I join, AA, BSM, pass and go? What do they like? What blah 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 blah. And they can make a bit more of a decision based on some actual information rather than listening to a sales call. But no, I think this is a brilliant tool that you're providing, because I just don't think there's enough information. And actually, Josh, that's why I started my YouTube. It's definitely changed a lot from when I started. But if you look at my original videos that everyone still loves, it's why I became a driving instructor, what happens as a driving instructor, is it all it's cracked up to be? And that was because when I searched, there was nothing there. There was nothing out there. So yeah,
I did
but I agree with you.
your earlier videos. I don't know when you started doing them, but obviously having a very similar name to me when I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go with my business. I'm like, oh, Josh, the driving instructor. Who's he?
Yeah,
So yeah, and I saw some of your videos, and there was a few of them around. I think some of them was around business development as well, if I remember right, or at least
yeah,
growing it, something like that. It was a little while ago.
yes.
So
Trying to
it's
encourage people to go a bit more independent than feeling trapped in a franchise. Because I felt, sorry to interrupt,
no,
I
you're
felt
good.
that you're very pushed into a franchise from the beginning, and that people don't realize there's a choice there. I certainly, it didn't seem like they were trying to make me aware. I felt like I had to fight tooth and nail to be made aware I could do this without going through a franchise. And once you're trapped in there, it's not a little trap. That's 12 months to 4 years. I've got one person is trapped for 4 years on, I can't remember how much she's paying per month, like 400 plus pound a month, something ridiculous. And I just, yeah, so that's what people need to be made aware of, Josh. I think,
That was my very first episode was discussing with me and a friend. We qualified at the same time. He went on a PDI license. I didn't. And I'm still surprised now the amount of people that I talk to that didn't realize you could qualify without a PDI license. You
yeah,
don't need to go on this pink license.
no,
Most people I've spoken to, it worked for them because they
yeah,
could earn and you can cover cost of training with it.
yeah,
For me, it wouldn't have worked because I would have had to work more hours than I wanted to cover
yeah,
the cost of the franchise and everything else. So I took the hit and taught for free. But there's not as much money in allowing someone to just do the training and go and figure it out on
no,
their own. So I think having awareness and being able to go to places like what you was doing early on, find good trainers and understand the process. And
yeah,
that way you can then make your decision. You might decide to go with a big national franchise, but
yeah,
then it's your choice. It's not because that was the only option you thought you had, which I think is something that we can raise awareness of and people can find the route that works for them.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Which is, so do you think you had the right support and the path that you took was for you, or would you have changed anything?
Yes, I would have gone with Craig Paul, local driving instructor. So I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't because what can I say? It worked, didn't it? It doesn't matter what it costs at the end of the day. I'd pay it all and twice again. It worked, and I loved the job. So no, it absolutely worked. The trainings were brilliant, still are brilliant that I had. And yeah, passed first time, which was just luck. It was just luck of the draw. Um, so no, but if I was to do it again, I would have trained with someone like Craig Paul. And I say Craig Paul because he's a one-man band who's started a franchise. It's far more family orientated. And I think when it's smaller and it's not a big company, when you're dealing with people, then you're not dealing with sales teams.
Yeah.
And the problem was when I was speaking to someone on the phone, it was sales team. And then when I come up with the odd issue, like you said this and you've done this, and every time, Josh, every single time this happened on 3, 4, 5 occasions, it was, have you read your contract though? And I just thought the only answer you can come up with this little problem is, have you read your contract? I thought, this isn't good. This is not good. Um, so yeah, so that is why I would always go and always advise anyone, and I have done in many video and said, if you can, go with a smaller company, because you're going to be dealing with people, and yeah, and if they've already got some franchisees with them, then that shows success, and they can do it, and that's the important thing. What more do you need than evidence of success?
Yeah, it's good. That's good advice as well. I've spoke to a couple of people now that was the route that they chose. They'd shopped around, they'd done more research than I'd done early on in the
Yeah,
process, and they decided to go with a smaller school. Based on that, you're speaking to the person,
yeah,
that's who you're speaking to, not a team. And then you can choose the trainer that you want rather than being given a trainer. And
Yeah.
there's a few people now that I'm talking to that I've clashed a little bit with their trainer. And they don't feel like they've got many other options. And I'm
No.
like, look, I'm not a trainer. I can give you my opinion, but that's all it is. Speak to this person or this person. These guys are close to you. Maybe reach out to them. And I think that's what people need to understand is it's their journey, their business. Do
Yeah.
what works for you, not what works for someone else's business model.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely. Um, and if you don't know what to do, ask, find either join the Discord, message you on here, I
Yeah.
guess,
Here,
or
Facebook page,
Facebook. There's
email
loads on
me.
Facebook. Absolutely. Um, yeah, because there's lots of information out there. It's just trying to find it, isn't it? I guess. Yeah. What's your
Yeah.
opinion on Facebook, by the way, on the Facebook pages? Like
Face
ADIs only.
yeah. Um, Facebook is one of the only social media platforms that I use for the business and for
Yeah,
this podcast at the minute. Um, I think there's good things on Facebook
yeah,
and maybe not so much good on Facebook. There are some people with really good intent on there,
yeah,
and there are some people I feel that are just turn up, do the job, go home, and
yeah,
that's all it is, which I have nothing against. That's how you want to do your business, that's fine. But
yeah,
I think forcing that opinion on people that are trying to develop and need help.
yeah,
So I find it a bit odd at times. I
yes,
think you've got to pick either who you're talking to or who you're
yeah,
getting advice from. But what are your thoughts on
absolutely.
it? Do you use it much?
I agree. No, I use it a lot for my business. As you say, I grew my entire business on that. And that's an interesting one that I've got to mention. Anyone that's listening to this and says 17-year-olds don't use Facebook, no, they don't. But the mum and dads who pay for the lessons do. So get yourself on Facebook if you haven't. So yeah, like yourself, I completely built the business on Facebook from the ground up. Obviously, the YouTube's helped along the way, but most of my students, if I'm honest, are through Google. Just everything that I put on Facebook, the photos go on Google as well, and it helps coming up with a decent name. I think that's really important. Second, I changed my company to Josh, a driving instructor. It's a very interesting one. Here's a little secret for you because what do people search in Google? Driving instructor near me, blah, blah, blah. Josh, a driving instructor. If you just put your name, but yeah, sorry, I don't know where I got to that subject. Facebook. Sorry, Josh. Jump
It's
around,
good.
don't I? Yeah, so I don't use Facebook much for discussing. No, I find that there's too many opinions and a lot of negativity, and sometimes you're scared to dare put anything out there because you're going to get, three clowns giving you some rubbish, and for every decent comment. So no, I avoid that if I'm honest with you. If I've got questions now, I've got a small network of driving instructors or WhatsApp groups of people that I trust and like, and I'll talk to them more through that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I promote this on the groups because that's where my audience is. But I don't think I've really posted a question.
No,
Apart from when I came up with this idea, I asked for people to come on and do an episode with me, and
yeah,
that went. I was surprised with the people that reach out
yeah,
initially, but now looking back, I understand like the people that have been talking to me are the ones that are passionate and are wanting to grow and help the industry, which I think is great and I'm grateful for. But other than that, I very rarely post for like you've said, there's just so many people with different opinions. I will comment if I know the answer and
yeah,
the like not an opinion, more of a this is this is the answer to the question you're asking,
yeah,
rather than, well, I maybe sometimes do this, I do that, because I think then you end up with 40 different comments and you're like,
yeah,
who do I listen to?
yeah, yeah. Absolutely right. Um, you're absolutely right. And I think it's important what you said about you promote this on your Facebook, and that's great as well. And I think it's really important that you pick a platform, you stick to it as well. And that's what I've done with the Discord, and that's why I don't actually do much on the Facebook, because all my communications and stuff is more through there.
So what did you find changed with your website then? I'm interested with that. I, at the minute, don't have a website for my school. I don't have a website. I have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel. That's about it. So what happened with your website and the naming then? Have you got one up now that's not Josh the driving instructor, or is that what you've still got?
No, so originally it was the Toucan Driving School. If you type the Toucan Driving School into Google, I will come up.
I've come across that. Why have I come
Yeah,
across it? Maybe it was when I was looking into you and what you're up to.
probably. And there's a couple of problems with that. One, people from Recton or Repton, there's another Toucan driving school there, so I'd get people calling me from there. That was a freaking nightmare. And it's about 6 hours away or something ridiculous like that. And the main reason is because I wanted to try and link everything together as a
Yep.
brand. And YouTube, Facebook, the whole lot. So I thought, right, just going to become Josh the driving instructor. So I just changed the name on everything. Google, the whole lot. You're on Google, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, but there's no website linked with my Google. It's just Josh Holleran, approved driving instructor, I think.
yeah, yeah,
It's something I need to do is, like you've said, link it all together. At the minute, I'm running on referrals and
yes,
my Facebook
yeah,
page. So
yeah,
most people that come to me now are so and so, give me your details. But for the direction that I want to go,
yeah.
kind of mid to long term, I've got to develop a brand. I can't just have Josh. How do you find him? He's on Facebook somewhere.
um, yeah, I mean, to be honest, everyone comes through the Google, and the Google ratings are really, really important. You know, the reviews are massively important. The website, I don't think it's that important. It's great if someone, some people look at it and it makes you look more professional, doesn't it? You know, there's a
Yes.
website. Everyone's a website now, and that's a story of in itself. Trying to get someone to build a freaking website. If you need anyone, by the way, I've got someone, a driving instructor in the Discord that's very, very cheap, and he built mine in about 2 days. So yeah, keep that in mind. I think makes it look more professional, and it's great for what I've done, because what I have done is I've gone more into intensive courses now. I've moved away from
Okay.
the individual lessons. So it means if anyone messages or anything like that, I've got automatic replies that sends them straight to my website. Look at that, let me know. They can purchase through there. No one ever does, and I'm glad they don't, because it charges a bit more. Then they message me and say, I'd like to do such and such a course, and we go from there. So in that respect, it's great because I don't have to talk. It says everything on the website. It looks more professional. Um, and then, yeah, and they can learn more about me because, again, they've got more links to the YouTube and whatever else they want on that.
Do you think that helps sells you? Sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
there.
no, you're not
With
interrupting.
your YouTube channel, I've had comments from a few students now. The reason they came with me was my separate YouTube channel, the
Mm,
learner stuff. I've asked a few people, why did you come to me? I saw some of your videos on YouTube, and it wasn't so much that they was seeking a driving instructor, but it was more they could see who I was compared
yeah,
to everyone else that they'd messaged. And
yeah,
they was like, oh yeah, you had some stuff on YouTube. You seemed all right.
yeah.
They came to me. Do you get the same from what you're doing?
100%. 100%. Yeah, there's an absolute huge amount of trust from people who have seen a video. They know what you look like. They know what you're about, or they feel like they know you a lot better. I've had one just today, just before we spoke, that said, I've seen your videos. I'd like to start some lessons. So yeah, that brings in a huge amount of trust and a huge amount of students, definitely, which is great, especially when you do some local videos in your area. Um, yeah, and it's really, really nice. Especially, I think it's really, really important that it's a lot more of people that have recently come to this country that are foreign, from Romania, Poland. It doesn't really matter. but basically they're phoning around and they really struggle to get anyone because no one can be bothered to try and translate or whatever, and they build that trust with you, and they want to come to you because they want to just, but their eyes, they want the best, and they don't know what the hell else to do. So I end up with a lot of people that are on international licenses that want support in trying to either understand the roads in this country or try and transfer it across to a UK license, which is nice.
It's funny you mentioned that. Maybe that's why I've had a few reach out to me, but it seems once you get in a
Yeah.
certain community or network,
Yes.
I've
Hugely.
I've got a few now. I've got a student on my diary at the minute who she speaks English.
Yeah.
She's Brazilian, speaks Portuguese as a
Yeah.
first language. She came to me as a recommendation from a student that left me to go automatic,
Yeah.
but and so I lost contact with this student, and then 12 months later, I've gained another student. She's like, oh, this person recommended you. So I guess once you start getting in those communities and you are approachable, the business is there. Because like you say, maybe other people can't be bothered with it. Like people on an international license, they can drive,
Yeah.
maybe not to the standard of a test, but everyone that I've come across, they're open to learn and they want to learn. They want to get it done quick because
Right. They
they've
don't
got
want to mess about.
families. They
Yeah.
they need the
They're grown
job.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
that's something that I've not linked together, but that's
Yeah.
good to know that you're finding
Yeah.
people in different communities from what's going on there. But
Definitely.
to take it in a different direction, then what advice would you give to people that are wanting to start a YouTube channel or put some videos out there? Because we discussed it before we started filming, and
Yeah.
we can take this wherever you want, but it can be quite intimidating when you're seeing like the videos that you're doing and the
Yeah.
editing that's on there and the thumbnails that you've got on. I look at them and I'm like, I can't do that. And I'm sat on Canva trying to figure stuff out and I'm trying to edit videos and I'm not qualified in that. Um, so what advice would you give people that are just starting out and wanting to put some content but are maybe holding back?
Okay. First one I'd say is watch VidQ.
VidQ. I've seen
VidQ.
them. They've come
Yeah.
up on my Instagram
Yeah.
quite a lot.
Very, very good. If you want to start a YouTube channel, I mean, the channel's pretty much based on the same thing. I don't watch them much anymore because I've seen them a million and one times, and it's very, very good advice, excellent advice. I've watched them for nearly 4 years. But yeah, basically, you've got to try not chase other people. You've got to start at your own, you've got to make this your own journey. Um, I am a very small fish in a very big pond. I look at some other YouTubers and I could easily think, oh my God, I'm how the hell am I ever, how can I compete with that? And one day I had to realize I've got to just enjoy the journey. I've got to do this at my own pace and stop trying to chase people because you won't enjoy it if you're trying to chase other people. Um, and that's, to be honest, yeah, what I have to do really with that is stop watching them, stop trying to assess that situation and put content out, see what people like and build an audience, build a community. That's the key. It's building a community. And something that really stuck to me is something from Mr. Beast actually is until you put 300 videos out, don't bother asking for any help because you haven't made an effort. The best way to learn is get it out there. Um, the biggest key of advice, best bit of advice I can give is add value to your videos. Whatever your video is, does it help someone? If it helps someone, then it's good. Someone is going to watch it. Maybe they're not going to watch it straight away. Maybe it's 6 months. My biggest video on there, that's got thousands and thousands of views, wasn't picked up for about 5 months. 5 months, it sat on, I don't know, 300 views, 400 views. So you never know. All you've got to do is make sure you're providing value. As for thumbnails, things and titles, things like that, VidQ helped absolutely massively learn with that. With thumbnails, for instance, I've always stuck to the rule of four. You can't have more than four things in a thumbnail because it looks too busy. and that's why you'll always notice my thumbnails. You've got a picture of me. I try and stick to a plain background because I don't want that. There's nothing busy. It's too busy otherwise there. And then you've got another key object with maybe a green arrow or something like that to point, because it's the rule of 4, maybe a bit of writing, but you never have more than 3 words. So yeah, that's where I go with that. And titles, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
I think that's the good thing with YouTube that I'm finding with some of my videos, either on my other channel or this one, is you can change the titles. You can
Yes,
you can move
definitely.
them around. You can figure out what keywords are, what the search is. How do I word this? The keywords that are bringing your content up,
Yeah,
or people that are recommending your content, and then change the title. Play around with the title. Thumbnails.
definitely.
I try and keep them simple for this. I
Yeah,
didn't know about the 4 things. I just have try and have 3 bullet points about
yeah,
the episode, and then
yeah,
I've had some good advice from another podcaster about the titles, so we're changing them around. Um, but yeah, it's difficult when you see other people. So I appreciate what you were saying there about just get on your own journey and do what you enjoy. I
yeah,
stopped making my other videos because I was bored of talking to myself in the car,
yeah,
but they was adding benefit to my students, and I think
yeah,
the content that I'd got to is enough to help my students. They can watch it, they can study it between lessons,
yeah,
and then when we get back on the next lesson, so some tricky areas in Swindon, just having that on a channel to send your students to, even if your
definitely.
intent's not grow a YouTube channel,
That's it.
it it's providing a benefit to your students, which I guess in turn will build your business, and you'll have more recommendations, and then maybe people will find you and reach out to you because they've seen a video.
Definitely. And I think, as you've pointed out there, and as I should have said, if you did want to start a YouTube channel, especially as a driving instructor or something along those lines, start local. Start local, They're the easiest views you're going to get, and they're going to be the people that absolutely love you, and they're going to be the ones that buy your products, which is your services, buying your service, which is your driving instructing. Um, that's your best possible way to start business. They don't have to be good videos. They've just got to help someone. If I've got my driving test tomorrow or a couple of days time, and I'm looking because I'm stuck on a roundabout, and I search for Hanford Roundabout and it comes up with something. I don't care how good this YouTuber is or how many subs he's got. I'm going to watch that video because I want to know, am I doing it right? If I'm not, how do I do it? And if that guy does the job, he's getting a thumbs up, and he might even get a phone call.
That's something that you've said there, which I find interesting. I've had a few students a week before their driving test
Yeah,
messaging me, I've watched this video on YouTube.
yeah,
I don't do that. Should I be doing it? And I'm like,
yeah,
we've got a week to your test, and now you're
yeah,
second guessing it because you've
yeah,
watched someone on YouTube. I'm like, if you needed to be doing something, we'd have done it on the lesson.
yeah,
Maybe that doubts their trust in me thinking of it now we're on it. I'm going to cut this out actually. We'll
yeah.
get rid of this bit. But yeah, so I think it can sometimes be a double-edged sword. So maybe if you have got your own content out there, you at least or filter other people's and
Yeah,
find someone like yourself that you trust and you've looked through their content. If you don't want to make it,
yeah,
send them somewhere so they
yeah,
can study between lessons.
definitely.
Yeah, it's
Um,
everyone starts from zero.
Yeah, and it's really important that people know, and I try and say it as much as possible. I don't know what the polite one is. It's more than one way to skin a cat. Now, what's the polite one?
Go for
Uh,
whatever you want. Don't go
that's.
polite.
But yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to drive. You can do it how you want. It's about safe, and I try and
Yes.
say that the examiner doesn't really care how you do it. All they're caring about, all they're assessing is risk. Are you causing an issue to anyone or yourself? No, that's it then. It doesn't matter. 2 days of driving from one location to the next are never, ever going to be exactly the same. And it's the same with driving instructors. When you swap driving instructors and say, look, I know you've been with another instructor. If they've told you differently, tell me that I'm teaching you differently and we can discuss it. And if you prefer it that way, and it's fine, then it's fine with me. And I think
I
that's
like that.
Yeah,
asking. Yeah, I've had similar where they've come from different instructors, and I'm quite clear. Like you've said, there's more than one way
yeah,
to skin a cat. I I think that's what coaching is. I don't think coaching is every student does the same thing. I think
definitely,
it's developing every student to their way of doing things that works for them.
definitely.
And I like what you said there, that you find out what they've done previously and you work with that rather than, nope, this is how I teach it and this is what we're going to do. I think that then moves away from the coaching and client centered side of it, and it's
Definitely.
your way or not. So
Yeah,
that's good to hear that you do that and
yeah,
you take on what everyone else is doing.
definitely. Because you get two students who go for a test, and they won't drive the same, will they? You know,
No.
they've both got their own little strange points that you think, "Oh, that's different, you know, but doesn't matter. No, no, it doesn't. Um, no, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there with the coaching. You're not trying to turn them all into little Josh robots. This is how you drive. You're trying to help them stay safe on the road and understand. The main point for me is, can they assess when they've messed up? Can they assess when they shouldn't have done something or when they should be doing something? That's the key, isn't it?
I've just so before we film this, just finished a lesson with a student. We was going to talk about it, but we'll maybe get you back on in the future. He can't get a driving test. He's got one booked in for the end of the year.
Yeah,
He tonight was driving pretty much independently, but was making mistakes.
yeah,
But he was correcting the mistakes himself.
yeah.
One of the things that he'd done, he went to go into first gear instead of third gear. So I kind of just had a watch and he put the clutch back down, went into third gear, carried on. Few little mistakes, missed mirror checks here and there. And he's correcting himself. So at the end
Yeah.
of the lesson, I was like, look, have a few weeks without lessons and go and drive your car. Focus on
Yeah.
the things that we've been discussing. And in a few weeks, we'll do another drive and then work on whatever you need to. And a few weeks after that, we'll get a mock test in and then we'll look for a cancellation at 2, 3 days notice, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and it's literally just happened half an hour before we started filming. He was correcting himself. I mean, you don't need me
Yeah.
anymore.
No.
You go and practice in your own car and
Yeah.
use me for what you need to, then you're not paying me a fortune. And I can
Absolutely.
stop doing the 12-hour days.
Absolutely. Winner, winner.
So it's
But
good. But we've been going a little while now, and I know we've got things to do. But before we look to wrap up, what are your plans next? Is there anything else you'd like to share? What direction you go in?
plans. Yeah. So going, I guess, back to what you said at the when you asked me what would my advice be to people on YouTube, just reflecting off that, my advice would be to experiment, go far and wide, spread far and wide, and throw enough of that shit at the wall and see what sticks, excuse my French. But I've been doing that for 4 years now, and I've had enough and I'm not going deep enough. I'm still going wide. So I've stopped, decided. So I'm going to take the YouTube channel in a different direction. I'm stopping uh, everything else and I'm focusing purely on my YouTube now. And yeah, I'm going to go more down a reaction video style. I'm going to be using other people's content, reflecting on their content. And yeah, I mean, it's been really effective in other niches. There's no one doing it in driving instructing, really. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm planning to get a lot more content out. Um, hopefully doubling up videos, you know, in the near future. So yeah, hopefully be seeing a lot more from me. We'll see.
Good. I look forward to it. You can carry the name across the YouTube platform.